Welcome back to the Growth Hacking Culture podcast. Today, we are diving into a topic that is not just a buzzword, but a crucial need for businesses today: conscious leadership. The world is facing an increasing complexity and uncertainty. The old ways of living simply aren't cutting it anymore. Now, you might be thinking, okay, another leadership trend. And what is so special about this one? Well, get this. A recent study by Deloitte found that organizations with strong conscious leadership practices saw a 30% increase in employee engagement and 15% boost in productivity. And it's not just about the numbers. Conscious leadership prioritizes things like ethical decision making, social responsibility, and creating a more inclusive environment where everyone feels valued and especially heard. But here's the real challenge. How do we actually cultivate this next generation of conscious leaders? That's what we are here to explore today. And joining me today is Irene Riad, who is a passionate guide for those seeking self mastery. She's an author, a speaker, and certified coach. She empowers individuals to unlock their full potential by integrating the science of art and experience. And what's more, what is really special is that part of her book that is called Radical Becoming the Superpower of Success that is being released as we speak. And by the way, it's co-author with the famous legend Brian Tracy. So this is awesome. She talks about that in about conscious leadership inside of her book. Irene, listen, I'm eager to pick your brain on how companies can equip their future leaders with the skills and mindset needed to thrive in this changing world. And I want to go with the basics because this word, conscious leadership, is use and misuse. How would you define a conscious leader in today's context?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Ivan, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and with your audience. A beautiful introduction. Appreciate it. It's such a big word indeed, conscious leadership. And that's what I'm devoting my whole, well, let's say second half of life, when I found out that that's really my calling, I guess, if I could do it that way. So conscious leadership, if I simplify it, it's about embodying this kind of stewardship, which is about a responsibility of caring and serving something higher than me.
Mhm.
So that it's embodying it, not just saying it, not just putting techniques, embodying it in a way where it shows in my who I am, the traits I have, the values that you mentioned. And then with it, if I am embodying this stewardship towards what? So with companies, it is also towards wealth creation, but in alignment with a divine purpose. That's how I say it. So
Mhm.
it is still focusing on getting those KPIs, those revenues, because if you are embodying conscious leadership, you're doing it with integrity and some of the traits we can talk about, the how,
Mhm.
but it is about stewardship to bring that abundance, wealth creation. And wealth, we could talk about what it means. Money is part of it, but also creativity, innovation. But this wealth creation, and it's in alignment with some divine purpose, a higher calling, something that is greater than us, that serves the community.
I find it interesting that you have plugged in the word divine. What do you mean exactly? Is it linked to religion, which is can be a source of inspiration for the values that we want to follow? Many people who are not really into religion consider divine or the as just a source of complementary lessons or directions that we should aim to. It's a reflection of how us as individuals we can rise ourselves with something that is more powerful, but it doesn't mean always the same God in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Quran. It means something else. What's your take on that, Irene?
So divine is definitely not aiming at a religious sense. It's aiming more at a spiritual sense, and it is meaning that higher. So the higher energy, the higher source, the higher self. And I enjoy the word divine because it gives it some direction, higher purpose, calling. Maybe that's
Mhm.
going at. There's a pull versus a push. And if we spend time connecting as a leader, because conscious leadership, you've got to connect what's happening inside to what's happening outside, and then what's happening universally, the divine, the universe. That's how when I place it, I'm thinking of it in that way.
Totally aligned with what I'm thinking, what I think about this purpose-driven or conscious leadership. The well, the only thing is that in my case, I use the word transcendence, something that is higher than us, but
Perfect.
it can be divine. Why not? If this is something that inspires people, yes, use the word divine, because I think it is a beautiful description. Um, if we have to drill down into these key traits and skills that characterize these conscious leaders, um, how would you describe this part of traits and skills for conscious leaders?
Yeah, I think the foundation is what I call depth of self-awareness. So
Mhm.
not just the general self-awareness, I like this. My preference is that I call it depth. So depth meaning really understanding your shadows, areas of yourself that are hidden, the subconscious area of who you are. So there's a foundation of self-awareness that is pretty much, it is a skill of practice, and we can talk about how we do it, but it's a trait. You'll always find these people curious because they're curious of whom they are and whom they are becoming, how they're showing up. So self-awareness is huge. Another big trait is vision. They're led by a certain vision that is greater than themselves. It's helping them sift through what is important right now, what is essential to be sustained in the future. So they're guided by some vision, and again, it's a skill that could be cultivated, but usually there's also a sense of trait that people are always looking at. These conscious leaders, they have something bigger in their mind. Imagination becomes a muscle that
Mm.
they actually stretch and use. Other traits, definitely integrity and humility, because in consciousness, we talk about you know yourself so well that we know nobody's perfect. You know your imperfections and you're comfortable with them. So there's this humility. It doesn't mean being stepped on and humble in the sense that you don't think more of yourself, but actually no, you know you have such strong power that you've got to use it with humility, because you know also you've got such great areas of improvement.
Mm.
So the balance of that and the integrity, doing what is right ethically.
I love these 4 points that I have kept with me. So self-awareness, vision, integrity, and humility. Now, the first one, Irene, is super difficult
Yeah.
and depends also in the stage you are in life. If I think about Ivan in his 20s, and even in my 30s, I I mean, I can tell you, I believe that I knew myself, but I only knew more or less the easy triggers, the behaviors, like what gives me pleasure, what I hate. But self-awareness, as you have mentioned, goes into the deeper roots of understanding what produces the behaviors, which is something called maybe values for some people, but we don't understand shit about it when we are young. And only towards the 50, we start digging into making the time to reflect on that, to take notes on that. Sometimes I do that, by the way, take notes on that because it's a continuous discovery. Because we are, our brain, I have the impression, is not made to really to understand our depth. We are afraid, or either we misunderstand, and how I want to just dive into that part. How do we do that? What would be the ideal pathway so that people understand that self-awareness doesn't stop the uh, at the reactions, but more about understanding the stimuli that we have.
Yes. So for sure, self-awareness is a process that is going to be an ongoing, like growth. It's like our own personal development. We sometimes think once we've hit the 20s that our brain stopped growing. And so neuroscience is telling us our brain, like our self-awareness, is a continuous spiral of growth. It cannot stop growing. And if we don't pay attention and do it with intention, we end up sometimes saying, how have I become this person? How have I become? Because we just have been not paying attention to what has been happening inside our minds, inside our bodies. And so in my work with clients, when we go through, let's say, a journey of coaching or some kind of journey of development, I use a process which I talk about, or a system which I talk about in my upcoming book. It includes individuation, Carl Jung's individuation process, which looks at how our mind is cultivated from childbirth up until when we pass away, because it's continuous. So the ego, how is the ego developed? Then that's why when you say mid 50s or 40s, now it's a little bit younger. Maybe people start 30s to get agitated and want to know more. It's because somewhere midlife, and midlife is just a term to use at some midpoint, it becomes less, our life becomes less needing the ego to drive it, because the ego is about survival on autopilot, things that keep us safe. We've learned it through parents, society, and so forth. And then midlife forward, we have this need, human need, of creating something more. We start to pay attention of what is my calling? Why am I here? And actually neuroscience now is saying that our brains are wired for a spiritual connection. There is something, and we only start to pay attention, perhaps even at that time, because we've gone through some struggles, we've gone through some experiences. That time is quite unique from a brain and ego development, and also our experiences as a human. So I would take people through a stage, a journey that doesn't really end, but at least we go through a process where they become very clear about the ego's fears, because that's what stops us from even initiating that kind of growth, or we feel scared. I'll find out bad things about myself, or it's easier to not look at the fear than face it. And facing takes courage. It takes a bit of mistakes as well. It takes a bit of vulnerability. We've not been trained, so we'll make mistakes. We won't do it right. It's like midlife, you want to feel like you're the master of yourself. But once you start looking at your fears, you're all of a sudden a beginner. And it scares people, and it is definitely not easy. That's why not many people choose it. But if you've got a higher calling, you got something big out there that is calling you, it's worth it. It becomes worth it.
You have mentioned about intentions, so to do it in purpose, in fact, to make the time to know yourself a little bit better. You have mentioned the place around of the ego, which is basically looking at the world just through emotions. I would rather say, rather than using both parts of the brain that are combined, the rational and the emotional. We have also natural tendencies to judge ourselves, to judge others, which prevent us from creating the space to the journey of self-awareness. And I like that you have used that word, because it's really a journey. It is not like a point that I do like a checkup at the end of the year, and this is what happened. No, it is a trainable skill, in fact, but you have to train it every single day. It's not like once per week. What would be your key process to avoid distractions, because what it is between us and knowing ourselves is the day to day, this flow of I have to take care of the kids, I have to do some work, I have to indulge myself, pleasures, stupid pleasures, like it goes from the simple, boring Netflix into I have to prepare the holidays, as I mentioned to you, for as of next week, and that is distracting me. I'm not here, I'm not present, and I'm not thinking about myself. How can people create the time and get rid of these distractions so that it becomes a routine?
That's the key word. How do we bring it into a routine? And I think the very first process, or maybe step, is I would tell even my clients, just first make the real decision. And we take a moment, really decide. And by that decision is action. So perhaps that decision of taking some time with yourself to really get so clear about what is important for you means maybe I take a journal that I dedicate, maybe buying a new journal. Like when you make a decision, it's like it's a mind talking to yourself, and then you take an action, whether it is by carving out a certain time in the day. And I would suggest use your very first 5 minutes of the day, even if you're still in bed.
Mm.
Change that cycle of alarm and you getting out and trying. And so bring something at the very first morning, bring a new tool. It's all like symbolism. Use symbolism. Use something that that would celebrate that you're making this decision. And it doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to cost anything. You don't need to buy any course. Just get a nice journal that you like. Put it in a place where you're ready to start writing, just, I would say, your 10 goals for today. We don't even do that in the morning. We just know that we're going to get in the morning, go do this, kids to school, go to work 9 to 5. And that is, we need to break that cycle and break it early in the morning. See that time. It could be with your coffee. Maybe that journal is not next to the bed. Maybe that journal is next to the coffee, next to your kettle. And while you're sipping your tea or coffee, and you might say, I don't have time, but when you make the decision, you'll create 1 minute. 1 minute, 60 seconds are actually enough just to get even 5 goals.
Mm.
You don't need so much time. I think our brain and our mind makes it think like I need to put an hour. Just put, I say 5 minutes. Part of that 5 minutes is getting the journal, the pen, and just write even 3 goals. Start small. If you can get it to 10 every morning, and don't look at the page before, it's not a repeat exercise. Just start the page, my goals for today, and spend it in some silence. If you like music, put music, but spend it with yourself and write what is important. And buy time, do this every day. You can always reflect back at the end of the week and see how those goals changed, see what was repeated, see what new came out. That's a beautiful exercise that you even start to pay attention to what is emerging in you.
Mm.
And that's one part. That's just a small, and some people do it at night. That's fair enough. Do it at night. Maybe it's a reflecting over how the day went, but what is 10 goals, 5 goals you would like to start for tomorrow?
Mm.
That should help at least start to pay attention to what's happening inside of your mind and body.
I find it quite important, this exercise, but people need to understand, because I have got the discussion with friends, with business people about this story about writing down the stuff, not thinking about your 3 most important or your 5 most important. It is in psychology. I think the best results that we have is empowering the different areas of our brain. And when you're writing, you have the possibility to don't let just emotions or the impressions that you have kept from the day or from what you want to achieve during the day, that you have the cognitive part of your brain that is awake, that is present with you together with your emotional, but there needs to be both of them. And there is neuroscanning that shows how our cognition wakes up when we are writing. So it's just about leaving enough time for our brain to make choices about what we think about what happened yesterday. Was it interesting? Was it a bad day? Or was it just an impression, an emotion? I got yelled by my boss. Was it that bad? Was he right? Was he wrong? And if we judge, we use only the emotional side, we are not taking the full picture. So writing wakes up our cognition. And it's important about the writing. Don't make the shortcut of, yes, it's enough if I think about it. Doesn't work.
Totally, so much agree. Because even as you said, there are scans that the imagination or the feeling, they're two different things, I know, but they're in different parts of the brain. And when I practice this myself and I think about my goals, part of it is what am I aspiring? So there's a bit of imagination, that the dream, what is it that I would love to get done today? And there's emotion in it. And then when I start writing, I do feel some resistance. I still feel that too. Like I don't have time to write. I thought of them. Let me move on. And that is the ego's, I guess the ego is conserving energy. It is about survival, making you more efficient versus really effective and giving the quality. So notice that. Even noticing that resistance is a great self-awareness. It's more depth than many people who think this resistance is them. It's not you. It's that part of the mind or the brain, or the ego is in the mind, that has really protected you up until now, made you efficient, careful, and quick, and all that. But that was good for the first half of life. Second half of life, this intentionality, this dream that wants to come through you, this calling requires a little bit of quieting and calming the go, 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 safety, efficient ego. Still have them, him or her, still, they're very helpful. But then you need to balance just as much and equal that reflective, intentional, concrete, cognitive, alert side of you that has big dreams, and the brain needs to write, as you say, when you write it, your mind is actually noticing, oh, this is real now. It's not just an emotion that flew and went its way. Yeah.
You made me think about one of my favorite writers, and I have read his book 10,000 times, I guess, Viktor Frankl,
Oh,
who is saying that from the moment there is a stimuli and something external and the action that you are going to take, either the reflection of an emotion, anger, sadness, or whatsoever, if you're able to create that little milliseconds,
yeah.
that little between these two, so stimuli to reaction, this is where we have choices, where we have freedom, because we are looking at the reality. We are not looking some bullshit that we have invented. And that's one of the key purposes of self-awareness. I wish, now I'm going to be going into the sideways. I wish self-awareness was taught even when we are kids. I hope that one day our society can reflect on how much it can make people whole, complete. We train ourselves since the moment we are kids to manage to be more introspective. Some people will call it do some mindfulness, but to just to know ourselves, we would be more happier.
Absolutely.
I'm just speaking wrong English. I think a lot of stupid shit that is happening in the world, including wars, could be really, really toned down if
Yeah.
we are capable of knowing ourselves better. And that's where it drives me to my next question. So we have been talking about the individual doing the exercise, about knowing himself, this conscious leadership structure into self-awareness, vision, integrity, humility. For me, the three last parts, vision, integrity, and humility, is a consequence of the self-awareness exercise, Jim, that you're doing. And now I would like to have your take on into what is the role of organization, corporates,
Mm.
in order to foster a culture that nurtures this conscious leadership. How can they help? How can they create the land so that these guys can grow like little plants beautifully? Yes. How can we do it, Irene?
Yeah, I love the question because there are various ways. I think a good place to start is that when organizations look at how they're developing their next level of leadership, because every organization may be looking at development of training and identifying, assessing. I think we are good at assessing. There's a lot of psychometrics that we assess. We get reports. Then when we come to implement some kind of development, the inner development of the mind is totally out the window. It's
Yes.
not even thought of. And I find that fascinating. So we do really well in organizations in developing skill, but the idea of developing the mind, which means mindset and body understanding, the awareness of that the body speaks to the mind and vice versa, and bring in an element of higher calling, purpose, which would actually bring in practices that are maybe considered a bit more spiritual from the sense of it allows someone to connect what they're doing to their higher purpose.
Mm,
And companies are afraid to go there. They think it's well, woo-woo or something that has to do with community outside of companies. But when companies are developing conscious leaders, leaders who are embodying the stewardship that we talked about, that they are working, that their work is actually a calling to serve the community. And companies all have a calling to serve some kind of community, in addition to wealth creation. So we said stewardship is creating wealth, but in alignment to that divine calling. And so, programs, whether it is coaching, webinars, training, a blend, bring in mind inner development. Name it whatever you want to name it. It could be called emotional regulation, you could start with emotional intelligence, but then bring it into the success mindset, the
mm,
inner development of the mind. How is your mind allowing you to create outside of the limits that you feel with your team or with your company? So success principles also have a spiritual element. If you know that you are in essence having a calling, everybody has and again, this could go back to beliefs and values. But if we're trying to develop and cultivate a culture of leaders, conscious leadership means I know that I am here to do bigger things. Yes, KPIs, revenues, and so on. But this bigger thing is also what? It's serving in some way my team, serving in some way my organization, serving in some way my community and outer purpose. So this mindset needs to be cultivated. And there are practices such as reflection that help. And I would really encourage organizations to seek out people who are specialized in this individuation, this helping the person individuate, not individuality,
mm,
but that they individuate, which is a term coined by the psychologist Carl Jung. And it's about uncovering what is in the subconscious so that it's integrated into whom you are becoming. Looking fear in the eye, looking at what's in your shadow, is part of this uncovering what is in the subconscious. Because a lot of us in the organizations are working with fear.
Hmm.
Fear of looking bad, fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of not saying anything, so saying more than what needed, lack of confidence, judgment. These are all fears. And if we're, as organizations, if we want people, leaders, to be actually working from abundance, working from strength, working from confidence, we need to help their mind uncover what's that in the subconscious. Why and where and when have these fears become part of the way we do, of the way we show up? And it's human, it's natural. We all have them. But I feel the companies and the organizations that will actually go farther, achieve more, and be sustainable in this complex, fast-paced world are paradoxically the people, the companies are going to slow down just a bit to allow the leaders to have that ability to focus on how to grow their mind,
Hmm.
uncover that subconscious area.
I I'm not sure I agree that this development slows down the growth of a company, that it has a direct impact. It's just about making the time to resource yourself with an additional tool that can help you go sometimes even faster in terms of growth. Because whatever you have mentioned on the tools that can be done are developed. In fact, the sense having a purpose develops highly the sense of intrinsic motivation. That means that instead of going and thinking that you are going to have your company more engaged because you have awesome perks, awesome bonuses, salaries, here we are saying is that people can do more and better and feel even awesome with if they you understand the triggers of intrinsic motivation. One of them is of course this idea of developing curriculums that goes more than the skill, goes into the meta skills to help them know how to learn new skills. And I came to my mind also some examples of companies who have done it, and they are not shitty companies. Like Google has this program for already 12 years, Search Inside Yourself, which is the use of mindfulness. And all these techie guys have to go via these courses because it's something that is going to be positive, and that has more value than these pictures with awesome cafeterias in Google. People feel belonging because they go to this course. I also remember another one, Zappos, which is an online retailer in Europe. Is not really well known, but it's rather American online shoe retailer that was bought in 2003 by Amazon. The founder forced people to have also mindfulness exercises as part of creating this culture of we want to make our customers feel happy. So how do we do that? You need to start by yourself. And everybody had to go into this training. And we are not talking about slowing down companies a company that is dying. We are talking about growth. These companies are growing and have a stream return on their shares.
Yeah.
So creating these new ways of learning is something that is quite important. Now, Irene, the difficulty comes because in the areas that are there are alternative ways of learning, like using
Mhm.
mindfulness or using self-awareness as part of a training curricula. There is good things that have been done through the understanding of human psychology and neuroscience. But then
Mhm.
we also have bullshit. Irene, I'm not going to believe in crystals and influencing
Oh,
your brain. I'm not going to believe into this. Some of the guys who are telling you about quantum theories where there is no proof. It could be, but hell, if you are not a physicist, so shut up, don't use it. It's enough to talk about psychology where there has been already quite a lot of research. How do we spot what is good or not in order to develop the future of leadership development?
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's so many methodologies and concepts and yeah, whether it's crystals, tarot reading, I don't know, many others that I
Yes.
don't know about. Um, I guess with organizations, it seems fit more in terms of the system of looking at humans as not just machines, but they have a mind, which we all agree. So psychology is pretty much proven in a lot of the even leadership guru books where they speak about we have to be able to really pay attention to our thoughts. And so I think when companies are considering what kind of method they're going to be using, if they're able to connect the method that is being evaluated to how the human is using their thoughts, using their feelings, and using their actions, if they can see a correlation. So if
Mm,
somebody says crystals or tarot reading, I don't have anything against them, but if they're able to show and convince the organization who's taking that how the thought is being evolved, or how
mm,
our feelings are becoming more mature, and how our actions are helping us to become more purposeful, then let's talk. But I feel that from all the research and the readings that I've done, um, evidence has shows that depth psychology, because there's a lot of psychology out there,
mm,
and some stuff can be correlated to psychology of different kinds. Depth psychology, which is from the father, coming from the father of depth psychology, that I aspire to, and I read a lot from Carl Jung, has been used in a lot of the business books and girl leaders of today, but not just him, because I also believe that our psychology, our mind, is also speaking through our body. So work like that on how consciousness and leadership is grown through awareness of our nervous system, work from Dr. Stephen Porges, Dr. Gabor Mate, Dr. Peter Levine, these people who've been talking about trauma informed, compassionate ways is needed, because our mind can go so far in terms of uncovering the shadow areas, understanding how the mind resists change, the neuroscience that happens between how the ego has adapted to the past, and now we are moving to a new future. So more adaptation. We need the ego to serve us versus us being slaves to the ego. So understanding that psychology is helpful. And then how do I work with my body? Because my body is part of my mind. So my mind has conditioned my body to react in a certain way, to cringe when I hear something, to feel a rush when I think something is fearful. So my body is also like an animal, like it's another part of me.
yes. Yes.
So the science of the body, and that's why mindfulness kind of connects how we are focusing. Because mindfulness, really, if we come down to how mindfulness is being used, mindfulness is about helping us become aware. It's not about trying to go somewhere peaceful.
Mm,
I see it as, are we taking a minute of really becoming aware of the chatter in my head? And the more you are just allowing things to, allowing yourself to be present with it, the more you're able to take command of yourself. And actually, I do agree with you. It's not about slowing the organization. Maybe I use that word because maybe that's what I hear. We
mm,
need to slow down. But either you actually become more present.
mm,
You actually feel you have time. You're not in a rush urgency, but the other side, when you hear it without experiencing it, you think I'm slowing down, but it's actually, no, I'm just becoming so present now that time almost stands still for those minutes. And it's very little touches of being present, grounded, versus I'm here, but my mind is swirling. And so I feel exhausted just by standing and doing nothing. I think I jumped around a bit, but I don't know if
No, Irene, it's awesome. I don't know. I just feel and visualize exactly what you're doing when you're saying we feel present. Yes, present means the outcome for a company is to have better decisions. You are not emotional or
hijacked. You're not emotionally, pulled right, left, and center.
exactly. People who are able to know when they can be in the flow of work, be more productive. That means more money, productivity. That it means that because right now people, I mean, corporations do not realize that if they should be around 20 to 30% of the people who have absenteeism, so they're, and it happened to me, to be in front of the computer doing shit, nothing.
Mm.
And what you want is that people are capable of managing their internal resources so that they can be more productive. They can trigger this state of flow, immerse in something that you love. You have a little bit more of intrinsic motivation, and you are being really into work. And of course, innovation. And by the way, I hate when companies are still using brainstorming sessions of one day when it doesn't work for creativity to be into a stressful environment producing ideas.
Yeah.
Stress is the enemy of creativity. What the hell?
You're right. And when you were talking, I also would love to add that actually the byproduct of being present and attentive to thoughts that are coming from fear versus thoughts that are coming from imagining what the future could look like and innovating comes clarity.
Mm.
Because if you're able to calm that inner busy person who's afraid all the time to miss something or to look bad, or if you're able to calm that down, you're able to get clear minds in the organization who can make better decisions, who can calm a
Exactly.
team, who can get them all energized in an inspiring talk because he's clear, he can cut through the chaos.
Mm.
And we could train that. If organizations decide that 2025 or moving forward, that every learning journey opportunity has a thread of mind work, call it whatever, mind, body work, mind health, wealth, clarity.
Mm.
You can train as an organization your conscious leaders to have clear minds. And that's ongoing because we're getting more dynamic. Even goals shift so much. How could I cultivate this clarity of mind and the body of calm confidence, I call it? You're confident, you're courageous, but calm. You can be assertive when you need to. You need to be fast, but you do it with clarity and calm so that you're not overwhelming a team. If there is a crisis, you're the one who's absorbing it, and you need to get them into calm action quickly.
I, when you were saying that, I was thinking back about your book because I have the impression that what you just mentioned about this sense of calm is reflected in your book, Radical Becoming. Is it that? Because I haven't seen it yet, but hopefully, Irene, you send me a copy. That would be
I
nice.
will. It's not out yet. Soon. I will, for sure. Signed one.
And tell me, so did what were you trying to do with this new book? What is it about? So why it can help develop conscious leaders? Sorry.
So radical becoming it was inspired by my journey. So I looked at my past at some point, And I looked at how the process I went under to be able to, and I'm still learning, I'm not there yet, but it's that process of becoming where I had to shed away an identity that I hold so tightly because it's who we are, but I had to shed one to revive and renew a new one of who I'm becoming. And it's a process where I look at 7 dimensions. I talk about a framework. It's a system I use. Even every day, I tap into, not every 7, but I tap into as many as I can. And the 7 have to do with the word mosaic. But the book looks at when I tap into my mind or my body or my soul, if I tap into the universe, am I tapping into my relations? Like if the many perspectives that I can give myself help me become more self-aware, more reflective. So I don't judge very quickly. I'm very mindful of my fears and my conditioning. It doesn't mean I don't trap into them sometimes, but I'm human. But I'm learning from my resistance. I'm learning from my fears. Every opportunity where I fail is helping me realize who I need to leave behind or what I need habits. It's not necessarily becoming someone who I'm not. It's actually allowing me to become fully who I am. So this becoming was the process of the book. And so I talk about the dimensions that allowed me to go from someone who had lost their job, had a big, dramatic, traumatic event personally, financially. And here I am. I've been able to have a family again, start up a business. I feel like I know my calling. It's evolving. So and it's that journey. How does this process work? And it's an ongoing. And I'm hoping that the 7 dimensions that I share with some examples provide conscious leaders like a framework, a template to start thinking from and to give them some inspiration to do something to find their divine calling and to work and for their leadership to actually be in alignment with their divine purpose.
I find the word radical inspiring because you're
Yeah.
right. Is about unlearning what the person that we are and recreating, even though the steps might not be radical because you cannot just become from one day to the other, but the inspiration, the platonic ideal of the person that we want to be should be radical. We got rid of the shit that was pulling us down into unhappiness, into lack of purpose, into taking bad decisions, being in bad relations, being in the wrong work. God knows all the things that happens to in our lives.
Yes, absolutely. And thanks for reminding me. A key element that I now have as a firm belief is that all that shit you talk about, the loss, the struggle, yes, I would not necessarily want to go through it again, but it's gold if we just mine it. If we really pay attention that has developed in me and made me the persevering leader, the more compassionate leader. If I'm working on it, if I don't mine it, if I don't look at it from a sense that it was a gift, paradoxically, that it gave me something that I will only uncover if I look at it from a sense that it has given me something, not just taken away my years, taken away my joy. Yes, at that time, when I was less mature enough in my mind, yes, it did indeed. And it has indeed changed things that I would maybe have not wanted at that time. Now, when you are ready to look at it from a lens that it has given you something, I'm able to connect how that loss, how that setback challenge is actually a catalyst, a foundation for that calling.
Mm.
Without it, I would not be ready to plunge with radically to that bigger vision, bigger dream.
Mm.
And I think that's within everyone, that opportunity is there.
It joins a little bit the philosophy of the Stoic people, because you cannot become radical without a little bit of pain, a little bit of
Yeah.
efforts. And whoever has become wiser, I don't think that there is people who are really wise as an absolute, but wiser, had to go through the painful exercise of breaking the chains of the past, changing behaviors, which is tough. Even I am pretty sure, Irene, you and me, we talk about it a lot, but it's a continuous effort. We are not really done yet. We are
No
getting a
way.
little bit closer, but no.
No, it's never done. And when it's done, then there's no life. So I
Mm,
think it's not about the destination of when I'm going to finish, when am I going to be happier, wealthier, healthier, all that. It's not when, it's who am I becoming? That's the goal.
mm.
Uh, because you are becoming stronger, wiser, healthier. I mean, that is the value. And with what you've gained in being, you are serving others who would benefit from all of the gifts that you have.
Irene, we are slowly going into the end of this discussion, which is passionate because it is something that I really love the topic. I really love it because I have put a little bit of sweat and tears into that topic into myself. That's why I love the topic. Tell me, how can people reach you out if they want to connect with you, just to have a chat, to understand a little bit more what you do?
Definitely. Please, they could visit my website, www.sightset, which is sightcet.com. And on the website, there's actually a free questionnaire, only takes 3 minutes, that helps them start to uncover areas of their shadow. So that's one way to kind of help them on their journey. They can contact me through the website or on LinkedIn. I'm there with my full name, Irene Riad. I would love every opportunity to share discussions or engage with people who are interested in this topic.
Irene, it was lovely to speak to you. And by the way, I'm going to put all of these links just below, and the link to this questionnaire that you have mentioned, because we need some tools to help us out. Even before we get to talk to you, sometimes we need to try something that will generate like the good discussion with Irene in person.
Absolutely. Would love that. Thank you so much, Ivan. I really enjoyed our chat and our discussion, and hope your audience has too.
Same here, Irene. It was lovely to have you with me.
Thank you, Ivan.